my bio would be read or what we have accomplished be read, and people would expect a different person to like get up,
Yep.
right? It could be, just some other person to get up and win. This is my power, which is something, whether people are talking about the challenges that we face, whether it's as young Black people or youth or immigrants.
Somebody like you on this, programs and councils and advisory boards and things like that. It's very important.
Which I think when I first started this mentorship pathway, it is two ways that I had to learn is it's important to listen, right?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Darskadar Media's YouTube channel. As usual, we ask that you start by subscribing to our channel and also liking the video. Today, we have a very special guest. We are joined by Nebiyou Timotewos, a young leader and advocate making a strong impact through mentorship, community work, and empowerment. Most recently, he was selected as one of only 30 students awarded the prestigious McGill University, one of Canada's top recognitions for leadership and community impact. We're looking forward to hearing about his journey, lessons, and the work he continues to do to inspire others. Welcome to Darskadar Media Nebiyou. It's truly a
Thank you so
pleasure to
much.
have you here.
Thank you so much. It is a great honor to be here and to be part of this meaningful work that you do. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I know I tried to introduce you very, very briefly. I mean, compared to what you have done, that's like the shortest possible introduction for you. So I'm going to give you a chance to say a little more about yourself and tell our viewers, what you're doing before I know, very soon you'll be joining McGill University. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, the simplest way that I can put it is I'm generally a simple person that have been blessed by so many community and so many blessings that I'm very grateful for. So I was born in Ethiopia, Hawassa in 2004, which now feels like a long time ago. It feels like I'm getting old as the days goes on. But I was born there in 2004. And then there was, of course, a lot of uncertainty just with poverty and stuff like that. And then when I was 7, we moved to Yemen, Sana'a, because my dad was an Ethiopian diplomat for the Ethiopian embassy. And when we moved there, when I was 7, which we will get into it more, but we have moved around a lot from Ethiopia to Yemen to Ireland to Sudan and stuff like that. And then now we are here in Canada, where we call home, where we do a lot of things. I'm going to be graduating in 2 weeks from York University. Where
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, it has been a very rewarding and challenging 4 years where I've grown a lot, but at the same time as well, where I have found myself, right, over these past 4 years, where we have started a lot of cool initiatives from our community's care initiative, where we give away folks that are in need food, drinks, hygiene kits, and stuff like that. And we just try to be around in the community a lot. So all that to say, I am a simple person that I'm very, very blessed to be here. And I'm looking forward to diving more deeper into the work we do as well as my story as well.
Very good. There's nothing simple about what you just did. You did a lot, and you're doing it great, and then you're doing a lot for the community. So that's really very,
Mm,
very good to hear.
thank
Anyway,
you.
so I'll just move on to my first question. Like you said, we'll dive into.
Yeah.
You have quite like a fascinating story. Like I saw, your profile, and I was just like really, like you've been through a lot. But anyway, we'll take a deep dive. But my first question to you will be, was there a defining moment in your life where everything changed for you? And if so, what did that moment teach you about yourself?
Yeah. No, that is a really, really great question. I mean, when I think about it, I mean, there's of course the daily things that do change, but in the grand scheme of my story, up until a couple of years ago, I was questioning a lot of things about our life because our early life was met of so many challenges, right? I feel like the last normal year I have had in my life was up until I was 7 years old, right? And then even with that, there was a lot of challenges, but there was a lot of defining moments. I think the biggest defining moment in my life was the Yemen war. When we were in Yemen, we have experienced a lot of traumatic things. When and at the same time as well, I was 7 and 8 years old, right? So I was still very young,
Yeah,
but still not young enough. I was young enough to experience those things, but I was old enough to remember what
I remember
happened, right?
them.
So
Yeah.
many things happened. I remember, where our house was bombed, where our school was bombed, and we have seen a lot of our loved ones lose their life in a very, very, very graphic way, very traumatic way,
Oh, wow.
right? Where we have came face to face with death so many times, where quite frankly, it doesn't even make sense how we're standing here alive if it wasn't by the grace of God. But you know, we have faced death a lot of times. And I think that's where the defining moment of my life began, because from then we moved around a lot. I mean, I've been to 13 schools in my life, right? Which
Gosh.
just saying it sounds insane, but we moved around a lot, right? So that's when the defining moment came for me, where I was conflicted or faced with these two realities. One was I fought with the survival guilt my entire life, right? Where a lot of people lost their life. Now that I am here, it was such a defining moment for me because one, it didn't make sense. Why me? There were so many people that were more capable, more smarter that lost their life, and I was simply just a lucky one, quite frankly. So, like, why me? That the survival guilt was such a defining moment in my life. Then the second one, which I actually did not come at peace with, if it wasn't a couple of months ago, was the identity crisis that we moved around a lot when we left Ethiopia. I was 7 years old. And then we've been to about 6, 7 countries, 13 schools. So I did not know who I was, right? So for the longest time, when I would be at interview and they'll ask me, tell me about yourself, I would freeze. I'm like, I don't know who I am, but those two were such a defining moment in my life, especially then when we came to Canada, we immigrated, we were homeless for 7 months, right? We were homeless in 7 months where we were in a shelter during, and I'm pretty sure you can definitely testify to this, to the viewers, how cold the Canadian winter is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Very
Wow.
cold.
I mean, you've experienced so much at such a young age. Like you said, you're not old enough to understand things, but still remember
Mhm.
the traumatic
Mhm.
experiences. But so what did those moments really teach you? So then I'll just go back to my question.
Yeah. So
Especially
it
what you said about the identity, not knowing who you were, like how to describe yourself. That was very,
Mhm.
very touching.
Yeah. No, that was something as well I had to figure out a lot in my life. And as I got older, I try to find my identity, whether it's I would try to play sport and try to be the best at sports. Or I would try these other things and try to be the best at them, thinking that's what my identity was. Like that's me trying to find my identity, which drove me into a very dark, dark place because you can't find peace if it's not within, right? So what those moments taught me, well, first of all, what the identity crisis taught me is the importance, and I cannot emphasize this enough to the audience, especially to the young people listening, the importance of having community
Yeah.
and mentors that pour life into you. That's very important, right? Nobody has ever done it alone, and that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to figure out my identity, and I thought it was just like a sprint. I just have to do it by myself, but it was quite frankly that nobody has ever done it alone. Nobody has done it alone. So what it taught me, because for the longest, especially coming out the war, right, you have to be very self-conscious, which I talk a lot about with youth, especially when I'm in the community.
Yeah.
Some people can notice how I'm very self-aware, right? Like, for example, I can spot, those survival instinct that we
Yeah.
developed in Yemen, right?
Yes.
Where's the door? Where's this? Where's that? So for the longest time, I just ran solo, So what that defining moment taught me is it's so important to have community. It's so important to have mentors, and you having those helps does not make you weak. It actually amplifies your impact and what your capacity and capabilities are. because sometimes we see things or we don't see things in ourselves that other people could see it. And sometimes we can look at things that other people don't look at it. So what that taught me is have mentors. Now I have a lot of mentors. I have a lot of community. And that's what taught me is the importance of having community. It's so important. It is good to, of course, have family and stuff like that, but have mentors, have communities. And just when you fall, they can help you get up as well.
Yeah, that's very, very, very important. I have a lot of questions about mentors actually. But like, what stood out for me when you were saying, when you were talking about how like the instability you had in Yemen, and then you going through all those, ups and downs, like when you were at such a young age where you couldn't even understand most of it. But like you said, and earlier, like you could remember it, but
Mhm.
you didn't let those affect you. So like now you're trying to help people. So like now you're looking like forward and then helping other people. I think that's really commendable. And what you said about mentorship, of course, we'll go more into that because that's really important. I know what you're doing is very important, and that's you're trying to teach people. And then like nobody's doing it alone, like you said. Sometimes all it takes is just one person to believe in a young person or a
Mhm.
child. So I'm glad you
1,000%.
said that. Very
No,
interesting.
1,000%. And just to that point that you said about just how one person can change the trajectory of one young people, that was me, right? And that's what I try to tell youth. I think now when maybe they look at what we have done and our accomplishments, and they might think it was just rainbows and unicorn. It was just a smooth ride, right? It was not,
No, it wasn't.
for the longest time, quite frankly, up until a couple of years back, I was very angry at the world, right? I was very angry at the world where it's like I felt like every time we were put against the odds won. But at the same time, I also felt like the world was just taking, 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 from the Yemen war. And then we go to Dublin because my dad didn't finish his term. And we're like, great, it's a fresh start. Now we're in Europe and stuff like that. Then my dad gets really sick with a gastric acid,
Yeah.
right? Where the doctors, quite frankly, told him that, like, you're not going to raise up your kids. You are going to die, right?
Oh wow.
And that's what he
On
was
top of
told.
all that, and
Yeah.
this kind of news. Yeah.
No, he was told, which especially with the PTSD and the trauma that he also faced at Yemen and not knowing how to deal with them, the way how he was coping was work, 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 right? Which backfired. And then being told you are going to die, right? Like your health has deteriorated so much. And that's why when we immigrated to Canada, it was one, of course, it was when we immigrated here. It was also that belief that he had, that Canadians are the kindest people on the world and Canada is the greatest country at the world. So thinking when if I don't make it to raise my kids, I know Canadians will raise my kids with as if I was there. It was also one of that belief that he had. So it felt like life was taking, 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 taking. So, and that's what I want to emphasize that for the longest time, I was very mad at the world until I realized the way my pain can actually be my power to then transform it into a positive instrument.
Wow, amazing. Yeah, that's what like I see in you. You went all through all this, but you chose to move
Mm.
forward and then look like you didn't let those moments define you. So you spoke about identity
Yeah.
earlier, like you didn't know who you were. And when you came to Canada, and like now you're a young Black man, what are the experiences that shaped your identity as you grew up? Like you said, you had all
Yeah.
those challenges from childhood and from the trauma that you faced back in Yemen with the war, and then you came to Canada and now you are a new person, you're growing. So how was your identity shaped between all those factors?
Yeah. Well, I mean, which is actually very funny because you would not believe me if I actually told you, especially academically, everything that I've been able to accomplish is because of trying to prove my worth as a black man, right? I felt like my entire life, of course, there's stereotypes in the community as well, especially when I had a longer hair, or even without the longer hair as well. I felt like every room that I was walking into, I mean, especially before university or even in university, right? I remember actually, uh, which I spoke about this with the dean not too long ago. When I
Mm.
was in my first year, my grades kind of slipped down and there was a group of people there that were like alluding that as like I was less intelligent because at that time I had a longer hair and stuff like that, and that became my passion. It's like, okay, let me get my grades up and let me prove my worth, and that was a battle that I had to face every single, and I still quite frankly do face, right? Like there is so many times when I'm at an event and where either my bio would be read or what we have accomplished be read, and people would expect a different person to like get up,
Yeah.
right? It could be, just some other person to get up.
Yeah.
And when I would get up, it would be like, what,
Yeah.
So every time I felt like I just had to prove my intelligence. I had to prove my worth. I had to prove, uh, and it's actually a very, very quite uh concept that we have to face because one is I had to prove that I was intelligent and I was capable of doing the work. And then once I did that and I got where I want to be, I had to prove that I got there based off intelligence, not just because I'm being given privileges, right?
Exactly.
Which we see
Exactly.
now a lot, companies and a lot of people rolling back on that value, right? And then we see a lot of pushback where we see an extraordinary black woman or black man doing extraordinary things, and people will be like, no, she just got here because she's black or she's this, she's that, right? So now we're being faced these two battles. One is, well, prove that you're worthy and you're capable of getting somewhere. And once you get there, prove that you got there just based off skills, as if, we were not jumping through barriers and doing twice the work just to be at the
Exactly.
same path.
That's a great point to make. That is that is amazing. I'm glad you said that, and I'm glad you spoke about your experiences because this is what young people face all the time, right? We spoke about the hair issue, like you said, and this comes up. Like even you think like you guys are young, but even it comes up at work, like at our age, like when we think we're older and we've seen it all, but things like this happen, like judging people because of who they look like or because of their hair or things like that. So, like, I'm glad you spoke about that because you're going to be facing these barriers all the time. And,
Yeah.
you're trying to educate the youth about it.
Yeah.
So, like on that line, though, now I'm going to be more specific and ask you another question, like a
Yeah.
follow-up question type of. So, you're of Ethiopian background, and how has your cultural background influenced your values and leadership style?
Yeah. Well, that question is very interesting because, for me, it goes back into the identity crisis, right? To where I grew up in Ethiopia until I was 7, right? And then from I was 7 up until like 9 or 10, Yemen, and then Ireland. So we moved around a lot. So it took a while, and it's still an ongoing process where I'm still learning about what my culture is, what our traditions are, what our values are, what our faith is, right? Uh, of course, I can speak the language and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, I do feel some sort of guilt when people would ask me about my country. Of course, there's the surface level facts. Coffee came from our country. We have the best food on the world and stuff like that. There
Yeah.
is those surface levels, but when it goes deeper to what our histories, what our cultures and stuff like that, that was actually, in fact, I would say that was the biggest contributing factor why I was having such an identity crisis, right? I felt like some sort of fraud, where it's like I don't know what my history is, I don't know what my traditions and stuff like that. So now these past 3 years, I've taken those intentional steps to learn more about it. Has been a very transformative impact on just not on my professional side, but as well as on my personal life. But the biggest one thing it has shaped is discipline. That discipline is what has been contributing a lot to my journey, whether it's on our faith, which we see there's during Psalm and stuff like that,
Yeah.
how disciplined it is. Faith has been so important to me, especially in this journey. I mean, especially this past year being fourth year, the McBain scholarship competition was not easy.
Yeah.
That was a very brutal 10 months, right? You have to go through, I mean, when it first starts, it's thousands and thousands of applicants from 2,300 universities
Oh,
across the
wow.
world,
Yes.
right? And After you do the first filter, there's about six interviews, right? And so in that moment of uncertainty, what not only our tradition, but how our tradition is based on faith kept me going. That not every day is going to be sunshine, not every day is going to be an amazing day, not every day is going to shine bright, but at the end of the day will pass and tomorrow will come. So that perspective, I really, really owe it to my our tradition and our faith.
That is an excellent answer. Amazing, amazing. And I'm glad you spoke about the process of the McGill scholarships because it's one of the biggest, and
Yeah.
I hope people understand what it means to be chosen amongst 30,
Yeah.
only 30 people from, like you said, out of hundreds and
Yeah.
thousands of students, right? So, hey, congratulations again. I mean,
Thank you.
I don't think I
Thank
said
you.
congratulations properly.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that was an excellent answer. Like I think you gave me almost what I wanted to hear, but but part of the reason I asked that question is because, sometimes I'm not generalizing, but sometimes, there is, it goes back to what you were saying earlier that immigrants or like,
Yeah.
people from other cultures don't really contribute to society positively,
Yeah.
but we know they do, right? So,
Yeah.
what unique strengths do you think young people, especially those from immigrant and Black communities, bring
Yeah.
into the leadership style? So, can you
Oh
talk
yeah.
about that?
Oh yeah.
Because you've
This is my
you've done
favorite
a
question.
lot. You've done a
This is
lot.
my
So,
favorite question. This
perfect.
is my favorite question. And the reason why I say that is actually this morning before I went to York, I usually go on walks like every morning or every night just to reflect on things.
Yeah.
And one thing came to my mind that I completely forgot, which begins this answer, which is I remember right after we immigrated, right? And we just went through the most brutal couple of years of our life, and we're still in the shelter,
Yeah.
right? But then we were registering for school. So my dad was taking us around, which God bless him, he has sacrificed a lot for us. And I remember we were at the line getting registered for school, and the person that was actually there was Ethiopian, right? So as we're talking stuff like that, and she got a big glimpse of what our story and our challenges were. And after she finished filling out the paper, which I really, really hope that somehow I can come across her one day just to thank her. Because what she said there changed everything. I feel like if she hasn't said those words to me, we would not be having this conversation right now. Right? She looked at us and said, kids, because at the time we were kids, and she said, I know you guys have been through a lot, but let me tell you something. This country is a land of opportunity. And no matter of what your past is, if you have the audacity and the dare to step forward, and if you work hard, you'll be wanted. You will succeed, right? And at that moment, I didn't really get it. I was just like, okay, is she? Then I left. But it was as I was growing up, it was really getting to me, that yes, we have been through a lot of challenges, whether it's us or a lot of immigrants, right? Get exposed into a lot of perspective in the world, and thinking, hey, this doesn't disqualify me. This actually gives me unique perspectives on things.
Exactly.
This is my power, which
Yeah.
which is something, whether people are talking about the challenges that we face, whether it's as young Black people or youth or immigrants, that's what I talk about. Of course, there's challenges. At the same time, I say, hey, that's our power. Like we can transform that into our power. So what I tell youth, the immigrant community as a whole, especially youth, is you have value. You have a great value. You have great skills to contribute to this country and to this world. And you limiting yourself because being afraid to either step forward or being afraid that you're facing imposter syndrome or just limiting yourself as a whole does not serve your community, does not serve our country, and does not serve the world. So you actually limiting yourself. You think, oh, if I just get by and if I limit myself, like I'm doing the world a favor. No, like the world and the country is being robbed of your great skills, right? So what my advice is, have the audacity to step forward. You have extraordinary skills. Even more than that, just as a human, you have value, So, and I know the noise, especially in our current world, could be a lot, but what I'll tell them is step to dare to step forward, find your community, find your mentors, and use everything that you have been through. Of course, I don't know what they have been through and what you have been through personally, but use that as your power and as your advantage and as your why and as your drive to make the world a better place. You have skill, you have value, you have everything, but if you don't step forward, you
Nobody's
won't
gonna see.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So step forward.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for saying that because I think I don't know if you've watched the interview I did with some of the young people in our community
Yes.
before, but this question came up in a way where like our youth are, sometimes they could be very humble and they're not taking up
Yeah.
space because of what you
Yes.
just said. So I'm glad you can also, you know,
Yeah.
verify that information and just let them so that they could
And
just
yeah,
shine.
and it is an ongoing battle. Even sometimes I do struggle with that. Even myself, where it's like you feel like sometimes if you talk about what you're doing, or if you just describe, or even if you dare to step forward, one, there's a big imposter syndrome you face. But then two, feeling like, oh, am I like bragging or am I doing too much? Let me just go back to my shadow, right? But which actually alludes to what me and you have talked about a lot about this
Yeah.
is our community in general as well. There is a great talent. There's great talent, but which is very funny. My dad used to tell me this all the time, which his dad told him. So I guess I'll tell my son this one day. It is
Oh,
it is a generational
yeah,
pathway. But he always says, the biggest success, you getting through a door is one thing. That is success halfway. But the greatest success is looking back and make sure the door stays open for others to walk through it as well. Right? So if you do extraordinary things and you do great things in the shadow and you're not stepping forward, not only for yourself, because I think people can think sometimes stepping forward is a selfish act, but I say it's the most selfless act
yes.
because when you have the audacity to step forward,
You're
there's so
opening
many
the
people
door
that
for
you
others.
inspire. So many people say, wait, he did it. Why can't I do it?
Yeah,
And you inspire people. So step forward. Really, like, I can't emphasize this enough. Dare to step forward.
yeah. Wow, that's an amazing saying. I don't know. I may have heard something similar in
Mhm.
Amharic, I'm sure, but when you said it like this, that's really amazing because when you step forward and you leave the door open and then you
Yeah.
let others in. So that,
Others walk in.
yeah, so that's amazing. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Mhm.
Okay, so let's take a quick break and then we'll go into the mentorship part.
For sure.
Okay, so Nebiyou, we're back. We're having an amazing discussion. Thank you so much for opening up about, your personal challenges and your journey. It's really, truly amazing, and I'm so happy you're on my show.
Thank you.
So my next question will be, I think, I just want to discuss more about mentorship and how important that was for you because you mentioned it earlier. So I want to just, talk about that more. So how important is mentorship, particularly for Black and immigrant youth navigating identity, what you talked about earlier, opportunity and belonging?
If I can put it on a scale from 1 to 10, I will put it at 1,000. Uh, I think it's really the foundation of everything. It is the foundation of everything. Whether you're a youth or an immigrant or from a different background, knowing that, the path that you're taking is usually not unique, as in a sense of there's so many others that have walked before you, right? That have faced similar challenges as you, that had to figure out the system, the education system, and stuff like that. So having mentors, one that can show you the way, saves you a lot of time, right? Which is something that I did not do when I first started. Now, I mean, I do give out a huge shout out to my mentors from Carl to everybody, because now I feel like they're like here for me every hour. You know, anything I do, I just consult. I just try to get mentorship on it, which is very, very important, right? Because one, there's two aspects of it. One, these people have walked the journey that you want to go, right? So I would put it in a different category. I'll say first and foremost, have a personal mentorship, right? Which is going to help you and guide you with your well-being, with your personal pathways when you're facing challenges, when when you face issues, somebody that you could talk to could be a friend, could be, could be anyone, quite frankly. Have those personal mentorship is very important. Then for the professional mentorship, that's very important. Where look into, and I think right now we're very blessed in our era where resource and knowledge and accessibility is right there, right? It's on the internet. There's LinkedIn, there's Instagram, there's so many things. So, I say try to find people that are where you're at, where you want to be, or that are walking that similar pathway, and have that mentors that can show you the way, that can tell you no, which is a very important thing. Which is which I think when I first started this mentorship pathway, it is two ways that I had to learn. Is it's important to listen, right? Being able to listen when they're telling you no, you don't just want to have somebody in your corner that just says yes, yes, yes. Sometimes that tells you no. So I would put it really from 1 to 10 out of scale of 1,000.
Thousand
It
percent.
is the foundation of everything you do. Of course, when we look at the media, whether it's Steve Jobs or LeBron James, these big names, they are who you see just on the screen themselves.
Right.
But there's a mighty community behind them, a mighty mentors behind them that you don't see. So get yourself mentors. It would save you time. It would save you stress. And quite frankly, I don't think you can do it alone.
Yeah. Good. Well said. Well said. So, was there any particular mentors that played a role in your journey? I think
Oh, a huge,
I'm sensing yes, but I
a
just wanted to
huge, a
know.
huge, a huge. Well, I think when I think about that immediately, the first three that come to my mind is the first is my late grandfather on my mom's side. Actually, this is very interesting. So the day before he passed away, we were on a call with him, and the way he was talking, which I talk to my mom sometimes, was like he might have known that, you know, this was his final few days, which he was perfectly healthy all the time. But when he was giving us advices, it felt like this was the last thing that he wanted us to know. And from a lot of advices, that one thing that he told me, two things that he told me that I stick with, and I think is very valuable. I think when youth are listening this, they should write this two things down because I have it written on everything I have, you know? The first one he told me is when you're in this world, work as hard as you can and dream as big as you can, like you have 1,000 years, like God has given you 1,000 years. If you have 1,000 years, I don't know about you, but me, I would start to think big. I would even think, let's build this, let's start a company. You would think big because the time that you've been given is 1,000 years. So he
Mhm.
says, run with that same ambition, optimism, and drive like you have been given 1,000 years to live. At the same time, live your life with humility, kindness, and compassion, like you're told you're going to die tonight. You know, like if somebody told you this is your last day on the earth, what would you do? You would try to leave a name for yourself. You would try to help this person. You would try to make people happy. So he says, live those combination every single day. Every single day. Wake up and say, hey, God has given me 1,000 years. I'm gonna dream big. At the same, hey, tonight is could be my last day, so let me treat people with kindness and humility. So that is a driving advice for me. And the second advice he told me, which is very important for youth especially, is he said this in Amarinya. በእርጅና ጊዜ የምትቀመጠው ወንበር በወጣትነት የት እንደነበርክ ያሳያል. He says, the seat, which, back home, uh,
Yeah.
elders have a seat,
Right.
he
Right.
says how that seat looks, which is a metaphor, but he says how that seat looks is a reflection of where you were at when you were
When
youth.
your
So he
younger
says, dream
days.
big, work hard, dream big. And then, of course, I have personal mentors. Carl Dorvel, I really have to give a shout out to Carl Dorvel, a person that has been really pouring life into me, not just as a journey at the professional life, but as well going back to our first conversation, navigating the world as a young black man, right? So it was important for me to also have a mentor that was a black man that could mentor me on things where my other mentors would not really get me.
Will not
Then the
relate. Yeah.
and, and the other thing that I strategically did is my advisors in school. I intentionally picked who my advisors are that could understand where I'm coming from. So there is a different scale of things, but I have a lot of mentors. I have a lot of mentors that I have been very blessed with. I have mentors, whether it's at the work side, I have community side. Like I'm telling you now, I'm getting into a maturity level where anything that you might see online or any events we do or any initiative we do has been consulted to at least, if I'm being generous, 10 people. That's the minimum, right? I consult at a different aspect. Uh, so I have been blessed with so many mentors in my life. From the tradition side, I have the church. From a professional side, I have people where I want to go. In my personal life, I also have that. So, uh, get yourself mentors. That's what I really, really, really tell youth is I know when you're young and that's something that you're faced with this you drive, thinking that I can do it alone and I can conquer the world. Yes, you can, but not alone. So get yourself mentors.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing about your grandfather. That was really like a very touching thing. And, like that's a life lesson, really. Like it's just a short saying it looks like, but it's like a
Yeah.
life lesson. Everything he said is true. And
Yeah.
we've all grew up, hearing things like this, but then
Yeah.
sometimes you don't take them seriously. But obviously you do, and you're not even at that age yet. Like you're still young, but you
I'm
really
getting older.
you're
Yeah, like
you you really paid attention. So that's great. Like I mean, you hear things, people give you advice, but like to be able to pay attention and just apply it in your life, that shows your maturity. So good for
no,
you.
thank you. And it is very, very, very important.
Good for you. Yes, it's very important. So, as we talked about it so far, like, so you've been involved with so many things, you met so many people. I mean, you won like 28 international awards. I'm not even gonna begin naming them. People can just go to your LinkedIn profile and see how many awards you won.
Yeah.
I mean, you've done so well for yourself, and despite your challenges growing up. And like I said, you didn't let that define you. You're looking forward and you're inspiring others. So you did so much, and you've been involved in so many initiatives, like platforms, like you're like invited somewhere almost every single week. I see you on Instagram. I'm like, where is he today? So I guess, I said that before. Like I said that because I wanted to say that
Yeah.
what responsibility comes with being seen as a role model,
Mhm.
especially for younger youth watching you?
I mean, I think it would be a crime if I don't mention the quote from Spider-Man. Uh, that says, with uh oh my God, now I'm blanking out how the quote goes, but
I'm sorry,
with
I can't help you with that. With
no,
a quote from Spider-Man, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, it was with from Uncle Ben. He said with great power comes great responsibility.
Responsibility,
Yeah,
yes.
that's
That
how
I
the quote goes.
know. Okay.
Yeah, so from Spider-Man, Uncle Ben says, with great power comes great responsibility. And that is that can't be really much true. It's very true. And so I think, the biggest thing that I had to face and that I still continue to face is how can I like continue to be driven and continue to scale up things at the same time staying authentic, which because I've seen so many youth when I talk to them in the community, which is very funny because I was at my old middle school not too long ago where I was giving a speech, and then after that one youth boy came up to me and we were talking, and he was talking about like, oh, like the way how he was, I guess, describing how he saw me was this like, oh, like it's just amazing and there is no challenges in the way and stuff like that. So the biggest issue that I face is I struggle. I really do struggle um with this feeling of showing youth. Of course, there are the awards that I'm so grateful for, but I really, really, really want youth to know that the work that goes into it, the dark days that don't get documented or that don't get portrayed in the media, the
Mm,
challenges that come with it. And, because when you're at a leadership space and when there's a lot of eyes, we tend to just put forward our best work,
true.
right? We
Yeah.
just tend to just put the polished version of it, right? or for example, when we talk, we say, oh, we have over 35 partnerships across sectors. Even now, we've expanded across the world. People say, whoa, that is incredible. But then what if I say, oh, and then we had probably two, three, 500
Bridget.
people that we reached out to and we were ghosted. That doesn't sound nice. So I'm not gonna say that.
Yeah.
So it was, that struggle of how can we still continue to do our work while staying authentic, because then that could backfire a lot when youth look up to you thinking that, oh, well, this person is doing extraordinary things because it was just a smooth path wherein I am facing this issue, that issue, this issue. So that's why I try to be as authentic as possible to say, look, the win is probably 1% of it. The 99% of it is there's this is my favorite saying in the Japanese tradition. It says, fall 7 times, get up eight, right? You can't get a home run without being willing to strike out,
Yeah.
you know? So just showing that authentic side of things when I talk to people, or when I was at the King Trust Canada event recently and one youth came up to me and she was telling me, she's like, oh, I was trying to launch this thing, but then it failed. Then she was surprised when I'm like, oh, ours failed about 7, 8 times. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, what you're seeing now is the
Yeah.
polished version of it. So I think that's the hardest part is how can I stay authentic and show people, since it doesn't look great, we all tend to hide our flaws and our so many things that is in the darkness, but uh just trying to stay authentic. And I think it should also be something that a lot of leaders and a lot of people that are out there as well should do, is showcase your feelings. Showcase how many times you feel. Showcase when things don't go right. So then people, especially youth, immigrant youth or peop youth from a different background can see like failing is part of the process.
Yeah. You don't fail if you don't try. So,
Exactly. You miss every
right.
shot you don't take, quite frankly.
Exactly. Yeah, that's well said. I want to go back to what you said earlier about mentorship. Actually, I wanted to comment on that and I forgot. I think what you said about finding a Black mentor and how important that was to you is I think it's very important. So like I just
Yeah.
wanted to speak to it more
Yeah.
because like having or finding somebody who can relate to your experiences or like just even on a personal level,
Yeah.
who can relate to you is very important. So I want you to speak more about that, please.
Yeah, so actually, to be quite honest, my first black mentor or black man mentor, I got Carl Dorrell, which I talk about him a lot. He's really a blessing from God. Um,
Is
I
it
got
in
him,
school? Sorry to interrupt you, but what
yeah.
did you, it was Carl from school? Did you find him in the
No,
school
so we
system or?
actually met in New York for the Youth
Oh,
Impact Council meeting during Climate Week.
okay.
And so it's quite funny how we met actually. So he was my first mentor, or I call him a big brother actually. Uh, is we met in September, so I have had him for about 8, 9 months. But how we actually met actually is when we were at the council meeting. There were so many seats that he could have sat at, and he ended up sitting beside me, and we just chatted. And then it was still surface level conversation, right? Just surface level. But then I remember at the night there was a global citizen reception, right? So we were at the reception, and I guess he's seen, because especially that fall of 2024, I was facing a lot of challenges. At the same time, facing with the other challenge to your previous question of trying to like portray just the perfect brand while I'm still struggling mentally, right? So while I was facing a lot of challenges, the deadlines with graduate school was piling up. There was identity crisis. There was the perception that I was facing as a black man, because that was the time where we're getting a lot of media attention. And although that comes with a lot of positive review, also came with a lot of negative reviews where people were saying names online and stuff like that. And so I just did not know how to deal with it, not only as a youth, but as well as a black man, as a young black man, right? Where, knowing a lot of work that we have put in, and when you finally get the media attention and people are saying, oh, he just got this because he's black.
Yeah.
How do I deal with that, right? So I remember when we were at the Global Citizen reception, I was feeling a bit down. So we both went out, like out the like outside by the balcony or just the open area. And that's when we had a real conversation. And I don't know what got to me, but I kind of like ranted everything that was going on. And I felt very like a different feeling that I've never felt when he turned and said, "Oh, I know how you feel." I was like, "What?" Because I mean, at that time also I had a lot of mentors,
Yeah,
but not that come from the exact path that I come from. And then he's like,
right.
"Yeah, I know how you feel," and he shared his journey with me, and the challenges that he faced, whether it's in the business world and stuff like that, and which is verified. Now we talk about it because I remember then when we went our separate ways and when I gave him a hug to say goodbye, like I like held on just for a few seconds because I was like, oh my God, So what I say is it's very like for me it was such life changing. Like this past 8 months have been life changing because now when I'm going through these special issues, one, I know that I'm not alone, but two, I know that there's somebody that I can give a call and that can understand me and that could guide me, so it is very important to have somebody. And in fact, I say this, if it's possible when you're in university as well, if you can get mentors as well, um, or advisors for your advisors, that's something that I try to do. Is if I could get, or when I'm booking meeting, if I can book with a black advisor or somebody that comes from my background when I'm facing a certain issues, right? So like I can't emphasize this. Mentorship is good as a whole, and it's good to have your different buckets. But then I feel like people, when they create that, they say personal, professional, family,
Yeah.
faith, done. But then there's layers that, whether you're a black woman, a black man, there's that intersectionality that usually falls under the crack. And that's where mentors, amazing mentors like Carl Dorvell, come in to fill that crack.
Yeah, but I think you're giving our community a lot of homework because sometimes even not knowing, right? Like, a lot of the use maybe, because you didn't grow up in Canada and then you explored a little more, you found out about these things. Maybe sometimes the kids who are born here are not even
Yeah,
aware of this, the possibilities of having mentors,
yeah,
in university or in school or anything like that. So,
mhm,
like, I'm just happy to see that, like, maybe we can apply
yeah,
this in our community as well, like, even
yeah,
with our professionals. I know a few of our professionals are trying to
mhm.
do that. Like, I don't know, about Dr. Mulu.
Oh
That's
yes,
what she's
incredible.
trying to do. So, like, everybody in their own capacity, if they could do
Yeah.
something, then it would help our youth a great deal. Because, like, this is what can happen. You're
Yeah.
like proof
Hmm.
that this is what can happen when you champion a kid, when you encourage a kid
Hmm.
who, like, you face so much adversity, but when you champion and encourage and you give a little opportunity and guidance, this is what could
1000%.
happen.
1000%.
Glad
1000.
to see that. Okay, so now I'm going to step into another very important topic. And I know you've been doing a lot of work around mental health as
Yeah.
well. So I'm going to ask you a few questions regarding that, just
Yeah.
because I want your perspective on it.
Yeah.
We all know that, the
Mm.
issue is out there, but like how you see it from
Yeah.
a young person's perspective like you.
Yeah.
So my first question will be, what are young people struggling with today that many adults overlook or misunderstand? That would be my first question.
That is a very interesting question. And I'm going to answer it by flipping it, which is, I think, and I don't even really put a blame at each side, but I feel like we're at a point where the world is changing drastically, right? Where the world was 10 years ago, heck, even 5 years ago, and now is not the same world, right? The world is changing very fast. And I think the generation gap is widening as we go. And there's no enough adaptability and to really bridge those things,
Mhm.
right? So sometimes, I mean, which has also been in case with me, where me and my parents could even sometimes be saying the same thing, but the way how we're communicating is very differently, right? And especially when with social media now, with technology, with AI, which is very interesting because Darren Entwistle, who is one of my mentors as well, who is the CEO of TELUS, he always says this. He says that social media and technology as a way is a way to bridge gaps, but it can and will never be a substitute to authentic human connection, right? And I really, really, really love that quote because I think right now, with these gaps that exist within our generation that I have alluded to, instead of fixing those gaps, instead of building a meaningful bridgeway, those gaps are being taken over by social media, by technology, and by other these factors, which then widens the gap. So what I think not only is something that goes on with the youth that the older generation don't understand, but as well as on the flip side as well, that the way how the old generation acts that young people don't understand. Because again, it's two different worlds. It's
Yeah.
two different worlds.
Yeah.
If I am in France and I'm speaking in English and he's speaking in French, we could quite frankly be saying the same thing, but we will not understand each other and it will not go anywhere. And that's what we're seeing now, right? And I think especially within our community, especially as a whole, with the upbringing being so different, um,
Yeah.
and the unique challenges now young people face, I think it's very, very important to have a very intentional and very detailed pathways for parents to understand. Even for my parents, it took intentionally stepping up to understand what mental health is, right? For them, it had to be a very intentional step, even for me, because when we were back home, mental health wasn't really a real concept, right? So there's these other gaps. So I think what is happening is not a fault of one generation, but I think there's a lot of big gaps going on, and we're turning into technology and these artificial things instead of authentic human connection. And I think that's what we need to bring back, to know that a couple of things, which might be unpopular opinion, of course, but visibility is not the same as connection, right? With what we're seeing at social media. That's not the same thing. Social media can give people audience, but it's not a genuine relationship, right? So knowing these things as well, that sometimes even with our community and this cross-generational as well, knowing those differences is very, very important. When does somebody want advice? And when someone wants pure empathy just for you to listen to them? So I think that's where the real cracks are, and we're turning to social media and technology to fix it when the answer should be human connection, human authentic connection. So we need those bridges, not starting other things, because which is what actually I see now, especially within our community. We see so many people starting new things all the time, which is fantastic. But as well as finding out how can we have what we already have and bridge it and work together is important.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that actually, especially in our community. Like you said, we have a lot of human connection. That's one thing that we are really proud of as Ethiopians. We were just actually, we had an event at work, and I did a little piece about coffee, the coffee ceremony, and then I
Yeah,
put up a little blurb about like how, people really took their time, and, as you said earlier, just be intentional and talk about their problems, like their issues in the community, whether it's their kids or the school or things like that, right? Like, so that was like your therapy for us, like growing up back
yeah.
home. For our parents, they don't know anything about therapy. The
No,
human connection is their therapy because they don't hold anything. They just go to this coffee ceremony and talk about it. This is their community. And that's so
exactly.
important. So I like how
Exactly.
you say that we should build up on what we have. And
Yeah,
that's exactly what we have. So that
yeah.
could be a thing where we can build up on our
That's all.
strengths as a community. So I'm glad you mentioned that. But I wanted to hear your perspectives, like, on the mental health aspect,
Yeah,
especially because you've been through a lot yourself.
yeah,
How like I want to say how did you cope with all those things we talked about earlier? I don't want to repeat them,
yeah,
but
yeah,
like even for me hearing like that's just being through so much at a young age, How did you cope with that? And how did, like, what helped you?
Yeah. Yeah, which is actually the story behind why we started our first initiative, Brothers for Brothers, which is our mentorship program. And the reason why we started that is because in my senior year, when whether it's people from my family or from my friends going to therapy, I said no. I said I'm not going to therapy. And the reason for that, one, I was senior in high school and I was a man, right? So I'm like, as a black, not just a black, as a man myself, I can't go to therapy because that might diminish my image as a man. Like I seen seeking help as it was some sort of weakness, right? Uh, so for me, coping turned into what I was talking about earlier, where I felt like I had to prove myself. If it's academic, I had to work myself. I mean, it was a point where I was overworking myself so much that my body couldn't keep up. Whether it's this, let's just work. That's what my coping was, and that backfired on my mental health so badly, especially after the pandemic, which worsened a lot of things for a lot of people. And especially for us when we're finishing high school, then I mean, when we started high school and we finished grade 9 and we started grade 10, pandemic hit,
Right?
and then we haven't done any training, any exam, anything, and pandemic ends. Now we're first year university, where it wasn't my mental health with everything that we have been through my my I guess way of coping was go. And by first year I just crashed. I crashed because it was not sustainable. It was not a sustainable way of coping. We're not robots, we're not machine. We can keep going for a couple of days, months if you're lucky, but you're human, you're gonna crash. That's what happened to me. And I was faced with this reality um of first of all understanding what coping is. So that's when I actually went to therapy. What coping even means. There's a different way of coping. There is therapy, but as well as you were talking about earlier, there is community, whether it's in Bunna or as well as outside community. So I had to understand what coping meant that, and with coping came with seeking help, especially as a man, is not a weakness. In fact, it's the greatest thing that you can do for the people in your life because then you're at a better place emotionally, physically, mentally to play your role, and to be a better friend, brother, husband, and so on. Uh, so that was my challenge with my coping, especially with the Yemen war and stuff like that. I did not know what coping meant. It was just work. So I had to understand seeking help is not a weakness. It's not a weakness at all. So now that's when then after I finished that in my first year, summer 2023, I was seeing a lot of my guy friends going through the same thing. I had a friend who was going through a terrible breakup. I had a friend where his mom was diagnosed with cancer. There was a lot of issues with my friend group, not also immediate friend group, as well as young men that I know in general in the community. And I'll ask them, right? For example, just for the sake of example, I'll be like, "Hey, Mark, how is your day going?" Or there's everything's going wrong. And he tried to mask it, said, "Oh no, I'm fine. It's going great." Right. So that's when I then realized the pattern because that was me, right? Saying that, okay, let's create not even the goal was not even to create an organization. It was okay, every Saturday, let us get together, the young men, and talk about our week. And that's what we kept on doing until we started posting it on social media and it gained traction. And so many other young men wanted to be part of it. Now, about 75 young men have went through our program over four cohorts. We'll be starting the fourth one soon. And we just had our first leadership summit in April 4th, where the room was filled by young men. So that was as well a testament of the work that when somebody steps up with this story saying that, look, I am a man, especially I think we need more in our Habesha community, is I am a man. I go through a lot of things. Me seeking help, me speaking up is not a weakness. It encourages a lot of people. For our first mentorship, I kid you not, it was like me and four people. For our summit, we had a packed room. That shows you the progress being made.
Wow, amazing. I mean, this is what I like about you. Like, you always turn your challenges into, like, platforms to encourage other people who are struggling with the same thing. And that's really a commendable act. Thank you for that. Thank you. And I think you already touched up on this earlier about social media and young people. Not only young people, I think social media is
Yeah,
affecting everybody, young or old, and things
yeah,
have changed drastically, like you said. So we live in a world of social media, and many people wonder that why so many young people feel disconnected or lost despite constant connection with through social media. And I think you kind of answered it already, but if you want to elaborate.
yeah. I mean, before, of course, I answer, I do say this, especially for the older generation watching,
You
is
mean
I
for
think
us?
social media. No, but I do say that social media and technology, I think, enables so much potential that we've never realized. Like it basically gives you the world on your hand on such a small phone, right? You have the whole world on your hand, which is which could be a wonderful thing, the way how you leverage it, and which we have also been seeing a lot of positive effect, but at the same time, it's backfiring a lot, especially on young people. And the reason why I say that, which goes back to what I was saying earlier, is visibility is not the same as connection, right? Social media followers are not the same as genuine relationships, right? And I think, especially going to what we are talking about earlier as well, a lot of people I think feel this pressure to like consistently like perform online or to look successful or to look happy, productive, attract, just the positive things of life.
You put
And
the best parts on
the best
social
part,
media, not the
and
struggles.
yeah, no, quite frankly, no, I agree. And I think over time, people especially young people, have started to feel like you know, emotionally enough to be real in some aspect, but at the same time, I think it creates a lot of loneliness where social media have normalized the being alone because it alludes to this idea that you're not alone because hey, you have 10K followers, you have 20K followers, but agreeing that that's not the same as authentic human physical connection. And when it's being portrayed as social media is everything, it creates a lot of loneliness. And I think many young people, I could confidently say me, like as well, many young people, I think, are surrounded greatly by in like digitally, but I think they're starving emotionally. I think they're really starving emotionally. And we are human beings. We need real conversation. We need real community. We need real presence.
That's true. That's why you need the human connection, like in places like the church and then
Yes.
programs through the church. So I'm glad, like a lot of the youth are realizing that, and then they're really um, creating these programs, like everywhere, like at church or like just to be together and then to have that human connection, and it's really important. And I'm
Very
glad you
important.
said that. You see, like it's one thing me or like another parent saying that, but it's different when you say it, like because you're young,
Yeah.
you're one of them. So if you say that, they will believe you. If I say it, nobody's gonna believe
You
me.
might sound like a lecture. No, no.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's why I wanted to get your perspective, and I'm
Yeah.
glad you think of it the same way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my next few questions would be like focused on. I know you're doing a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, you're involved in so many great things, so many programs, so many initiatives, and I wanted to ask about that and just get your perspective on that. What does meaningful support for youth look like beyond the
Mm,
surface level?
mm,
I know you
mm,
mentioned earlier you have these initiatives,
mm,
which do like certain things like support with like a few things here and there, which are great. That don't get me wrong, they're good,
mm.
they're very helpful, but they're most of the time people think they're just band-aid solutions and they don't address the
Yes.
structural issues.
Yeah.
So what can we do to move
Awesome.
forward?
I think the first thing that we must do is I think we need to start to listen to young people instead of consistently speaking for them, right? And I think too often in our society, we're very quick to label, especially youth, to label them into categories, into this, into that, and to also understand that so many young people, whatever the case might be, are not acting out, or they're not because they're bad people, or they're this, or they need you to put label on them. Sometimes they're just hurting. Sometimes they feel unseen, and sometimes they have never even experienced what consistent support is, which was in my case, right? And I am a firm believer of prevention rather than reaction, and just that belief that, invest in young people early, in mentorship, in education, in emotional support, but not only do that for them, do it with them, right? I think real development that doesn't include youth at the center is not development, because how can you know? That's why we have intentionally made every initiative that we have. By the way, our every initiative is led by youth, and our volunteer team is everything we do is youth for youth, right? Because who knows better than youth, right? Why would I know what you may need if I don't speak to you? Right? I can assume, but it is very important to give youth voices, and which is actually one quote that our Prime Minister Mark Carney said in Davos speech, which I think can be alluded to a lot of things. He said, if you're not at the table, you're at the menu, right? Which is a very good way of looking at it, which is, if youth are not at the table, if youth are not on the table sharing their perspective, if youth are not giving their insights and their advice on the decision that you make at the table, that's going to significantly change their future, which is their reality. And if they're not at the table, then what type of meaningful development is being done? So I think, going back to our first point, I think there's a lot of resources in the community. I think there's a lot of support in the community, but I think it's based off assumptions rather than letting the youth speak for themselves. Sometimes, which is also in my case, sometimes I don't need advice. Sometimes I just want you to listen to me, and just me ranting helps me, which was in the case of Carl, right? So I say give youth voices, give youth platforms, and give youth support. Because nobody knows young people, can speak better for young people, and come up with meaningful implementations and strategies for young people than young people. That is the truth. So I say give youth seats on boards, give seats for youth on every decision making, because the decision that we make on that table is going to carry real consequences into their future, which becomes their reality.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. I think having, somebody like you on this, programs and councils and advisory boards and things like that, it's very important. But if the youth want to engage, I mean,
Yeah.
we talk a lot about awareness a lot, right? Like, so, which is why we run these programs, and, you're
Yes.
trying your best to go into the communities
Yeah.
and say, okay, we have to, it's all about awareness. Yes, we have to
Yes.
engage the youth, we have to give them platform, but how can we move from awareness to action, and how can use be part of that?
Yes. So, which is actually very interesting, because this conversation has been coming up a lot at the university, right? There has been a lot of debates, whether it's at York as well as broader, but I can speak on behalf of York because that's where I go there,
Yeah,
where there was this thinking to say, hey, look, on this councils and on this board, we have a strategic numbers that's set for youth, but youth are not showing up, and even if they do show up, they say a word or two. So what is the point of doing it? How can we move more into action? Right? Which was what your question was pointing to. And what the answer became, especially with our consultation on campus with students, is it's not that youth don't want to be involved and to be moving into these action-based implementations, but it intersects with a lot of things that you have to tackle first, right? For example, if a youth is facing poverty, if they're working two, three part-time jobs, if they're trying to do school, then they're trying to do this, then their hands are tied down to where, which goes back to what you're saying, which is what we're seeing in the world right now. It becomes just talking. There's no meaningful actions being
right.
implemented,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's a very intersected issue, and there's no one size fits all approach. But I think we should really start to look at the core issues that the youth face in general, because even I know on campus now with the raising tuition costs and stuff like that, the universities are being concerned that student engagement is falling drastically.
Right.
Why is that? There's more students on in the university. Why is that? Because now they have to work multiple jobs. There's so many things. So I think first to be able to move into these issues, we need to acknowledge those real issues that youth face and help them tackle it and come up with better programs to support them. Um, and then after consultation, and especially I see this with our community, is, I think everybody comes up with their own idea and they run with it. And as you know, the famous proverbs goes in Africa and in Ethiopia, you can go fast alone, but you can go far together. So I think that we need that unit to say, hey, it is great that you have a charity, you have a charity, you have a charity, you have a charity, you have a charity. Instead of starting a new charity, let's combine what we already have and make it work and come up with a meaningful strategy.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that actually. That's a real issue. That's a big issue that
Mhm.
everybody starts a foundation or
Mhm.
everybody starts an initiative to do this,
Mhm.
that we realize like, the need.
Yeah,
We have the need like with youth, with so many things, but just let's collaborate. Like you
yeah.
said, couldn't agree more. Like let's pull our resources together and, tackle the issues that we are facing instead of,
Mhm.
running in each like every direction possible.
One, and if I may add just on that point, is we need to stop viewing youth and community as some sort of charity work. I think that's something that's very important. That seems like which we also see right now as well, with when things get hard, something we just roll back on. Shouldn't be like that, right? I think not only does every young person deserve dignity, opportunity, support, and stuff like that, but this is our future, right? This is the future of the country. This is the future of the church. This is the future of organizations. This is the future of our workforce, right? So let's start to view them as investments and invest in education, invest in mental health, invest the way how a lot of things diverts, right? From loneliness, gun violence, so many things usually come back to affordable housing, education, and that sense, right? Invest in young people, not as a charity or and stuff like that, but as a core fundamental foundation to our society and the backbone of our future and society in this country and in the world as a whole.
I couldn't agree more. And I mean, our future are like our youth are our future, and I think they should be our priority, which
Mhm.
is why, like at Darskara Media, I'm trying to engage the
Mhm.
youth as much as possible. I mean, it's good to tell our stories with in other aspects as well, but my
Mhm.
main goal when I find the time is to engage people like you, like the youth in different
Mhm.
areas. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you can help me with that.
Blessed to have really an amazing mentors. And I think even the word mentor could be an underestimate to describe such an incredible people like you, really, you know, which is when I talk to some people, is I tell them, I'm like, yes, I have one father, one mother, but I have a lot of mothers and fathers in the community. And I think without doubt, you are one of them that, goes beyond and actually supports our youth and not just give youth platforms and stuff like that, but actually be there and support. So I think I speak on behalf of all youth when I say thank you for all the incredible work that you do. And we're very, very blessed to have people like you because a lot of communities don't. And we see what when that backfires.
My next few questions will be maybe just a little, just on the personal side. So,
Yeah.
what message do you want every young person watching this interview to remember? I know you've touched upon some of them
Mhm.
earlier in the interview, but if you want to just go over it again, or if you have a few things that are you think are really important, you can
Yeah.
pick up.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, I'll give you two. One is the one sentence one, then I'll give you the more detailed one. The one sentence one, if I was given a megaphone that I can speak into the world, is have the audacity to step forward.
Step
I
forward.
know, like, it's like, I know as well, as young people, we're very anxious about the future. And actually, I've seen this quote at McGill, and it automatically became one of my favorite quotes, which is the best way to predict the future is to create it, right? So have the audacity and the dare to step forward, right? And I think you having talent and stuff like this is great, but if you don't step forward, it stays hidden in the shadow, right? So just that one line is there to step forward. The more detailed one is, I think, what I actually wrote on the post when I posted about the McBain scholarship, which is, I want a lot of youth, especially that are listening, to know that I'm not anybody special, and if my story actually proves anything, it's that your circumstances does not define your future. And, 10 years ago, when we immigrated to Canada and we lived in a shelter, we were homeless, yet we're very welcomed by this great community that has give us an honor. So I want you to know that I'm not everything that you see is not because I'm anybody special or anything. I think uh, it's because of having the audacity to step forward and not never let anybody convince you that your dreams are too big or where you come from, especially if you're an immigrant, determines where you can go, right? In fact, I say if your dreams, don't scare you just a little bit, I think they're not big enough. Dream bigger. They should terrify you. And sometimes, again, all it takes is that courage for you to believe in yourself and again have the audacity to keep stepping forward, even when the odds seem against you, right? And so, what I tell people is your pain is your power. Everything that you have gone through, use it as an advantage for good. Lead with kindness, compassion. And the biggest third one that brings those two together is have the audacity to step forward. Step forward. I haven't figured it out. Step forward. I don't know what I want to do. Step forward. I'm still figuring out. Step forward. We all are. Nobody have it figured out, right? That's why you see even these brands, they adapt their slogan all the time. They change their logo all the time. The main key for you, the main skill for you to master is adaptability, because the world will always change. So have the skill to adapt, but step forward anyway. You're scared. When we first started, I did not know how to even design a poster. I did not know anything. If you probably looked at my first LinkedIn post, you will laugh. You will laugh. And which is one of my mentors told me this. He said, sometimes embarrassment can be the cost of entry, which basically means when you start, you know, you you might not be the best at things. You might fall. That's okay. That's how everybody got started. You will learn. Just have that determined and that persistent just to keep going. Let your resilience lead. Keep on going forward, and surely the sun is going to come out. So just dare to step forward. Never let anybody. I know, especially in our community, we are so big on humbleness, which is a great skill to have. At the same time, don't let your humbleness shadow you, because you short shooting yourself or short extending yourself is not serving anybody good. You think it may be, but it's not. The world can greatly from your skills that and your values, but that all means nothing if you don't step forward. So step forward.
Well said. Oh my goodness. That was like packed, but really well said. Thank you for that. And now I think I'm ready for my last question. I mean it's gonna be a big one. So
Yeah.
unless you have anything else that you want to add,
Yeah.
maybe I mean there's lots of things we haven't talked about here. I mean,
Yeah.
you have, like, I just found out the other day that you actually have a book in 2024 that you co-authored a book
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
have one chapter. I think I have the title here, Educational Luminaries. Is that
Yeah.
what it's called? Yeah.
Right.
So, the story is all about, we talked about, leadership and mentorship, community
Yeah.
impact, everything that we have talked about so far. So you've done so much. I mean, there's lots of things to be said about you, but I just wanted this interview to be focused on maybe like mentorship and
Yeah.
mental health and just creating space for youth, and then what to do for our future. Like as you said earlier, the youth honestly have been through so much,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you mentioned earlier that your high school years. I remember my kids' high school years. Oh my goodness, and I can't believe that they came out of it
Yeah.
with no issues, like, because a lot of people didn't get that lucky.
Yeah.
So, the youth went through so much, and I just want things to be better for them. And then there's so
Mm-hmm.
much to be done for them. Like, I mean, they're resilient. They've been
Yeah.
through a lot, but they did it. They made
Mm-hmm.
it. Most of them are in
Absolutely.
university and trying their best, to
Mhm.
move ahead. So I just want to say
Absolutely.
that that's why I'm so passionate about, the youth, whether it's at church or in the community.
Absolutely.
Like,
Mhm.
this is my focus for the future. Okay, so my last question. I think this is a perfect closing question. If your life could teach the world a lesson,
Mm.
what would it be?
Wow. That is a very deep question.
You can think about it.
I think it's, you know, um,
You don't have to answer it right away.
no,
You can think
I
about it.
think it's you can do extraordinary things from a small place. I think when we come where we come from, especially Hawassa, we come from, especially my parents come from Qatar, from Hawassa, right?
Rural
So
area.
yeah, very, very rural area. I mean, when I go back to Qatar and I see where my parents were from, it was a home made of like, like stick and chicken and those, so
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't make sense why where we're at now today. And so I think one thing that if it can teach the world is anybody is your circumstances does not define you and you can do extraordinary things from a small place. And at the same time, I think everything that we have been through, it gave me this very unique perspective where I kind of detach from a lot of materialistic things, especially, when you come face to face with death, a lot of times you would see what life is actually all about. And it's about love. And it's about, I mean, over my lifetime, of course, I've been to a lot of funerals as well, and I've seen a lot of tombstones. And one thing that I don't see on the tombstone written was like former CEO, former this. It says he was a loving father, he was a son. That's what life is all about. And I think when life gets so busy and we're so stuck in the rat race, we tend to lose that sight. So I think if my life can teach people, it's about the small things, just the small things, and to know you can do extraordinary things from a small place and love lead the way. I think if, if I can be remembered, for the smallest thing, just trying to even make somebody's life better in the smallest way, I think I have accomplished my goal and my purpose of helping God solve issues in the world, even if it's in the smallest way.
Very well said. Thank you. You're very observant. I'm so amazed how mature you are. Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much. Okay, thank you so much, Nebiyou, for taking the time today here and discuss issues that are really utmost importance to our community. And our community, as I said earlier, is very lucky to have a role model like you to, give them such inspiration. And we hope there will be more people like you in the future.
Yeah.
Nebiyou, your journey is a powerful reminder that leadership is about purpose, resilience, and impact. From community advocacy to earning one of Canada's most competitive scholarships at McGill University, your story continues to inspire many. I wish you all the success at school. Best of luck at McGill. And I hope this is not the last time you'll be on my show.
Absolutely not. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if I may as well, thank you for the incredible work you do. Thank you for having me. I have had the great privilege of course, observing from far what a meaningful work you're doing. And just whether it's at church or the community, you're truly changing life. You're truly changing life and giving youth and people a sense of belonging. And I think goes back to our conversation earlier, which is something that our community lacks. And I think you have mastered it very well.
Oh, I
It's
don't know about
giving,
mastering.
no, no, you have absolutely had, you know, I mean, the first time when we met at church, I felt like I knew you for many years. It's that sense of belong, it's that sense of warmth, so thank you for the incredible, incredible work you do. I think our community is greatly blessed to have not just such talented people like yourself, as well as incredibly kind people like yourself as well. And thank you for having me on the show. It is such a great, great honor. And
Okay.
I think beats any accomplishment. This is my greatest accomplishment to date.
Oh, I don't know about that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Nebiyou, again. I thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And please leave us your comments and let us know what resonated with you most in this conversation. And also make sure that you share the video so that others can also share their thoughts. Thank you again for watching.